I wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you?
This is Codependent Content, a podcast where my partner and I discuss the TV shows, movies, and video games in which we've formed an unhealthy relationship. My name is Mattias, and my co-host is Shannon Riley. Join us each week as we try to make sense of the media we continually give our hearts against our better judgment, and commiserate with us as we struggle and fail to let go of the characters, stories, and worlds that we are entangled with. Because just when we think we're done with content, it draws us back in. Hola, Shannon.
Hey.
Hello.
Bonjour.
Welcome, everyone, to Codependent Content. Today, we are talking about Star Trek, Episode 4, Season 2, Among the Lotus Eaters.
Yeah.
I misspelled it wrong in the chat. For some reason, I heard locust, and locust eaters. They're all locust eaters. I'm sorry, Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing again?
Oh, we're, I think, talking about something?
Yes, maybe. There's a microphone.
Uh-huh.
Just follow. I think we should just, it's in front, we should just talk. Is what I think the thing is. I think we're recording.
Yeah.
And we're live.
That feels right.
We are live on Discord. Codependent Content. gmail.com. Oh, okay, whatever. That is a reference to today's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. You'll get it soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for indulging us in that stupid, impromptu, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, Shannon, as always, we are a couple talking about content, the things that we love, and we haven't really gotten to watch as much content as we wanted.
True.
But this week, we did end up catching up on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, you went and rewatched Season 2 of Warrior, and then we were all caught up on all 4 episodes of the... Is it 4 episodes already? It's crazy. Of the most recent season of Warrior. Shannon, do you want to talk about that?
Oh, hell yeah, I want to talk about that. If you guys aren't already watching Warrior on HBO, it's one of the first shows Mattias told me that I should watch when we first started chitty-chatting, and it follows the freaking gang wars in San Francisco. We've got the Chinese, we've got the Irish, we've got just, white men being white men, and how all of those pieces fit together in this very specific time period. And on top of all that, we have incredible action sequences, which is like part of my favorite reasons of why we watch that show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just it's just a great ride. Honestly, it's 10 episodes. Just jump in.
Yeah, for sure. You may be wondering why you haven't heard of Warrior yet, and like what's kind of going on with that. So let me give you a brief rundown. Warrior started on Cinemax, I believe, and then when Cinemax was still doing series, and I guess they pivoted away from doing scripted series or something, or I don't know whatever happened, and then they kind of maybe canceled the show or sold it to HBO. And so HBO picked it up for a 3rd season. And then when they picked it up, they dropped seasons 1 and 2 on HBO Max. Actually, it's just HBO. What was it before? Anyway,
I think it's just HBO.
It was HBO at the time. And so you might have missed it. It might have come and gone in your peripheral. And not known, like, why is there 3 seasons of this thing I haven't even heard of yet, you know? So, and there was a big gap between Season 2 and Season 3. I believe the filming locations and stuff are the same. All the sets are the same. I believe they film it maybe in South Africa or something, from what I recall. And so, but HBO did take it over. That's why you haven't heard of it. Or it might be kind of new to you if you haven't already caught it. And the other thing is that this is executive produced by Shannon Lee, the daughter of Bruce Lee, as well as Justin Lin, one of our favorite directors of the Fast and Furious franchise, Star Trek, something beyond, whatever, and a bunch of other things. And it is based off of the writings of Bruce Lee. So apparently he was writing some stuff. He wanted to tell the story. And so for that reason, I think it's worth checking out. The fact that it still, especially nowadays, holds true. When we discovered it, it was in the middle of the pandemic. And specifically, not only were we dealing with like a bunch of different riots and the virus and all that kind of stuff, but also a lot of Asian hate.
Yeah.
And so this kind of came along at that time, which I think was just very, very good timing. Like to just, again, relook at what Asians, immigrants of all types, and then what early America was like and what we've had to deal with prejudice-wise and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite things about the show, besides the action and the characters and the fact that it is just a bunch of lead Asian actors who are doing amazing work, is like the culture you get to see. Maybe not so much. It's a lot of gang culture too, so you don't get a whole lot of like the side culture, which I wish we had more of. But like, there's a lot of gang culture, and you're still getting a lot of that. But what they do is early in the first episode, you find out all these newly immigrated Asian Americans will only know Chinese or whatever language. It's mostly Chinese. And
Cantonese.
They could be Mandarin or whatever. I'm not exactly sure, but like they will speak that, and then there's a quick turn where they will all go into fluent English because they're all actual American actors, and so you know that whenever they are speaking fluent English, they're actually speaking in Chinese to each other, and then when they speak English to only Americans, white Americans, Irish Americans, anyone who doesn't speak Chinese, they will speak broken English, to show you that they are speaking actual English, which is one of my favorite things. And again, like we associate, the reason people will be prejudiced against Asians is a lot of time the broken English. And I love how just that subtle change of showing like how perfect a lot of their English actually is as actors and stuff. And then the differentiation of how they do it. It's almost like what's funny is like we see the prejudice is that, you hear broken English, you think they're fucking stupid or whatever. I don't know why I threw the F word in there, but that's like kind of like the thought process. But for this show, it's showing like how smart and capable and clever they are, and then when they speak broken English, it almost feels like they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, like I'm like making fun of you.
Yeah, they're making fun of like how you don't understand them, and like they're playing dumb and they're playing stupid. And I love that like subversion of like the expectation of things and how you can like look at that, and then again recognize and empathize with the fact that like they're just regular humans, just as smart as everyone else. They were never like the weird prejudice and associations. I mean, even as a kid, I probably thought like when you're growing up, like you had the stupid idea of like, oh, your English isn't good. Like you're probably like stupid or something. And like not something that I'm glad I held on to that belief, but it's something that like is easy to associate. And I love how it kind of shows that and teaches you like how it's not like, that's not what it is at all.
Absolutely.
And just that little bit of like strength that we get from seeing the show, the low confidence we get from seeing Asians speak well, fight well, be strong, and all those kinds of things, and then deal with like the stuff that they're dealing with. I just love it, Yeah. So that's just something
Great
about
show.
Warrior. We've been wanting to talk about it before. We finally caught it, and I'm glad we could do that.
Absolutely.
What else have we been watching, Shannon?
We caught up on Black Mirror all the way. That was a wild ride. I don't know if y'all like Black Mirror, but I really feel like they came back strong for this season. It's been a couple years since we've gotten, I think Bandersnatch was the last thing I watched with Black Mirror, right? The interactive like movie, almost choose your own adventure.
Was Bandersnatch a Black Mirror thing? I never watched it.
Oh.
I thought it was just a Netflix thing.
Yeah, no, it's a Black Mirror. Yeah, so anyway, I think Bandersnatch was the last thing that I consumed from Black Mirror. And the previous season was good, you know what I mean? But this season really felt like they're falling into a new swing, but the Black Mirror swing nonetheless. I like that this season, the threat and the like looming energy of technology is there, but we dive more into like how humans are the problem too, and how like we use and engage with things are, you know, what the issue is. So I had a great time with Black Mirror. We also had a Red Mirror episode that was specifically horror centric. It's the last episode of the season. And I honestly think probably are like might be my favorite episode of the season, just for how like fun and weird and different it was. But I also loved the fucking werewolf episode.
Most of the season was different because it wasn't so much tech, you know. I mean, we had an episode that was like a true crime kind of episode, and then we had an episode that was like you said, the werewolf one, and then like a straight horror one. And like I think the only major like tech or kind of futuristic one that we usually get with Black Mirror was I forget what it was called.
The one with Aaron Paul.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
in space
one.
Yeah.
And so just a very interesting season. I think just very strong still.
Yeah.
I loved all the episodes. I loved what they did with everything. I did like I guess spoiler, werewolf one. Very much, I think they used practical effects wherever they could. I did think it was going to turn into a different kind of episode at the end of it, but then I like had to wrap it up. I was like, oh man, like I just wanted it to be like these people stuck in a diner with a werewolf trying to get at them. And like, I love those kinds of movies. Specifically, I'm thinking movies like Tremors or something where you're kind of like stuck in a location and having to like get out, you know, and it's this thing that's just it has one goal, which is like to survive or whatever, you know? So yeah, I love those. Yeah, I think that one might have been close to my favorite one.
Yeah. I really, it's like the three I remember most are the Aaron Paul one, the werewolf one, and the Red Mirror episode. Spoiler alert, I guess, for all of these, because I'm just giving away the very ending. But Mattias, I loved at the end of the werewolf one where she makes the girl, like hands her the gun and makes her do that because she wants the picture and like she wants the news story. And I know we were saying that this season leans less overtly into tech, but there's that idea again of like these pictures are being sold to media outlets, which will consume either via paper or via the internet. So it's like how things are just like intrusive into our lives. But yeah, to hand her that gun and be like, cool, you want to die? Do it. And I'm going to fucking catch it on film and like exploit your final moments after all of this trauma that we've all as a group gone through. Like, I'm still going to get my shot and I'm still going to get my payday.
Yeah, I think I liked the imagery and the thought process behind it, but I guess I didn't feel I didn't know where our Zazie Beetz, our main character, like got around to that, you know, because she was trying to get out of that kind of game and trying to treat people like more human-like and stuff like that. And then when she's confronted with this time, she decides not to treat her like a human, you know, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if it was just about the money for her or whatever. So I'm kind of that one was a weird, like I loved it, but also didn't kind of situation. So just in terms of wasn't sure what she was supposed to be going through at that time, you know?
Right.
And I think also like the one, that theme also is in the documentary film, the true crime one as well, you know, like using like everything that happened to this guy, and then he has to go to the festivals and get the awards for this documentary that was, he basically had, like, it wasn't even his doing, you know, like it was not, he kind of set things in motion and was making this thing, but like really was just kind of out of his hands, and like that similar theme to, you know, what would happen after like it taking a photo or whatever. So, yep. I think good season all around, gets you thinking about a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it. What else? Dropout. We've been watching it make some noise and stuff. So great. Go watch some cool game shows on dropout.tv if you haven't, that's a fun place to get some cool nerdy content.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's something else that we've been watching. Oh, we watched Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
You liked it?
Yeah, it was all right.
Oh no, you don't like it.
I never said that I loved it.
You did like it.
Well, apparently you didn't read my Letterboxd review that I posted that evening. Plug, follow me on Letterboxd.
When I asked her, she said she liked it. So I had some things to say about it, but I didn't like it as much. But mostly I was just bored.
Yes, it was boring.
A boring movie.
And we talked
like,
about the fact that like he's not even the main character in the story, and that a lot of things just like cohesively didn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like an Indiana Jones. There's one part that feels like an Indiana Jones film when they go like cave kind of diving or whatever it is, which is what you want, and they spent the least amount of time there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Just a little disappointing in terms of that. And wasn't all that like there was like one puzzle and like the rest of it, like the death traps weren't all that exciting, you know? So, but it was like still like the thing that I loved the most because that was like where we were getting some classic indie stuff, you know? So yeah, whatever. It is what it is. I don't know if you liked it or viewer, listener out there. If you want to watch it, if you're into Indiana Jones, you might like it. People will say better than the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So if that's all that matters to you, then yes, go see it. Shannon caught up on the last Wolverine movies that she has never watched.
Oh my God, I watched Logan and the Wolverine, but I watched Logan, and that movie had no right being that good. It was a very good movie. I'm very upset. I was very upset. I'm not going to spoil Wolverine for you guys, or Logan for you guys. He dies, guys. He fucking dies. And I didn't know he was going to die. Whatever. The little girl's really good. She's really cool. I would definitely watch her. If we were to like continue the Wolverine franchise, but with her, I would be so on board because she was so cool. Yeah, great movie. Didn't realize how much of a Wolverine stan I am until I watched the Wolverine in something. And then I'm like, oh yeah. That fierce motherfucker. Let's go. He's going to be in the third Deadpool?
Oh, yeah. Well, I forget that Hugh Jackman is technically coming back for the third Deadpool. We don't know what's going on with anything.
But
it won't be Old Man Logan. It'll probably be like before that.
But
I also don't know if that'll be, we don't know how canon that is anymore, you know? So, and this is a Deadpool that's being done after Disney finally took it over, so it'll be interesting all around. I actually highly doubt a Deadpool 3 is going to come. Personally,
what?
I don't think it's going to happen.
What do you mean?
I just think that whatever Ryan Reynolds wants to do is not going to fit in line with what either Disney or Marvel or Kevin Feige want to do, and therefore it's going to either. If they do it, it's going to take place in maybe in another universe since we're in the multiverse saga, you know, or it's just going to be so different from what they want to do. They're just going to continually like push it until it no longer gets made. I just think that's just personal. This is not the, I mean, we've had Star Wars movies that have been supposed to be coming out from other directors and things like that. We have heard nothing from. So I wouldn't put it as, and even I think some Marvel movies that just can't, like we aren't sure what's happening with or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if things just get pushed to oblivion.
Wow.
But that's just my personal opinion. Now
Disney, give me Wolverine.
I mean, they'll eventually give you Wolverine and the X-Men. We just don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah.
I do hope that, one, if they do it, I know everyone has their thoughts on the Marvel television shows and whether or not they're good, or even Disney Plus is even doing good with shows or whatever. I would love if the X-Men was just a series.
Yeah.
Kind of like, not standalone, but like, didn't need to be movies or something, because there's such an ensemble cast, so many characters you have to get to know. You might as well like do like a like 10, 15 episode like series of
That'd be
just
cool.
Doing the Xavier Institute, getting to know the characters, doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the MCU. You can maybe tie in a couple of things, but I would love to do that. And then I feel like we could keep returning to the Xavier Institute like between movies or whatever. I think that's how I would do it.
Just spend time with them.
What I would really love to see, but I don't know if Marvel's into that, and they haven't announced that, so it might not even be on the radar. So we'll probably get a few X-Men possibly sprinkled into some of the like Avengers movies before that happens. Who knows? Or maybe they're keeping on the wraps. It's gonna be hard because there's a lot of casting to have to go through and stuff. So who knows? I think it should be a series.
I'm down with that. I think you pitched that pretty well. Speaking of Marvel, we caught up on Secret Invasion as well.
It's still going.
Episode 3 of 6.
Spycraft.
Yeah.
Not again, same thing we said last week. It's going to be hard to rate this one
Piece
until
it
the very
together.
end. And hopefully by next week we'll have watched some of The Bear. I'm thinking that we'll save any of our thoughts on The Bear until we finish the whole thing.
That's a good
I
idea.
think maybe we should do like a bonus episode or something, because a lot of people are talking about The Bear, and we haven't seen a single episode from season 2.
Yeah.
Which I'm just disappointed in myself. But I'm working too much.
Yeah, Mattias, you are grinding. Do not. We will find time for The Bear. We will make time for The Bear. I, knock on wood, amazingly have like avoided all spoilers so far. I'm just seeing, a rogue meme every once in a while that I'm like, I don't understand the context of this, but
well, now that there's a new social media platform, it's like the Wild West again. Who knows? Like, you'll just be on it, and then suddenly spoils will be delivered because the algorithms.
Only
new,
if Paris Hilton watches it, apparently, because that bitch is all over my feed, even though I don't follow her on any. No respect, Paris Hilton, if you're listening to this.
No respect.
No disrespect. But yeah, she is like constantly on my Threads feed. I'm like, I don't follow you anywhere. I don't understand why you're here, but welcome to the party, I guess. Don't fucking spoil The Bear for me. I don't know.
Well, yep, there it is. So we'll not spoil you this week, but be prepared. If you want to see a bonus episode of us talking exclusively about The Bear, then please let us know and how you feel about that. Because I think we do want to. Maybe there's a break in Star Trek. Is there another break this like a summer thing, or is it all the way through? Great. Well, we'll find some time.
Absolutely.
Hopefully. All that said, I think that's all that we've been really watching and talking about. So as always, this is a spoiler-filled podcast. If you haven't seen the 4th episode, season 2 of Strange New Worlds, then I would say check out now. We do give some general thoughts, but we're not like tight-lipped about spoilers even from the get-go.
No.
So I would say go watch it first, because a lot of what we do here is just talking about some things, and we need to see the episode, and we need to talk about everything in order to engage with our feelings, which is a big thing about this episode, Shannon.
Sure
what do you
is.
say? So there's your spoiler warning for that. We're going to talk about general thoughts, and we're going to go detail by detail, and then we might enter the lore loft, our new favorite segment that no one's heard about, but it's there. Right, Shannon?
I do love the lore loft.
Great. So, Shannon, why don't you tell me about what you think about episode 4, Among the Lotus Eaters? And actually, start off with go ahead and give us a little taste of lore loft, and what does that mean? Among the Lotus Eaters.
Among the Lotus Eaters?
Yes.
Dead ass, guys. The only thing I told Mattias was, does that say Locust Eaters? Because it's Lotus Eaters, and I know it's from the Odyssey. So I don't have like lore loft for it. I just know the Lotus Eaters are from the Odyssey, which I read in the 11th grade and had to do a 30+ page midterm paper on.
So nothing. So we don't know why it's titled this.
I don't know. No, I didn't.
Great.
I didn't dig deep into that one. Now
Okay.
I feel like I failed you guys. I'll Google it while Mattias is giving his input, and I'll let you guys know if there's anything interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like I just keep saying this about every episode, but this episode feels like a love letter to the original series, and I really enjoyed it. We got to visit Rigel VII, which, as we know, is an important planet in Pike's past, present, and future. So it's cool to see how they reimagined the landscape now that we have more like tech and CGI available to us. I just recently discovered the Ready Room, which is like the little Will Wheaton after episode podcast, like 30-minute segment. He interviews the cast and they talk about things that are happening. And they talked about filming on the volume and how.
I was wondering if they were doing volume stuff because it looks like it.
Yeah. So everything you see is like partially real and then like projected onto the screens. And Anson Mount was like, there's a lot to say about freeing up your imagination to focus on other things instead of also having to place yourself into this like fantastical planet where everything's trying to kill you. But he was like, something that was kind of hard to get a grasp on is when the camera moves against the screen, everything moves with the camera. If you guys don't know that, everything moves with the camera on the screen, so the correct depth stays there and like your field of focus stays the same. And Anson Mount was like, so you'll be talking to someone, all of a sudden things will just start shifting. And he was like, you kind of have to train your actor brain to like, yes, you're still in this space, but now things are moving and different parts of the screen will move at different times. So he's like, it's still like a wonderful addition to an actor's tool belt, but there are still things to learn how to acclimate to when you're like in the volume.
If you're having trouble visualizing that, there are 2 videos recently, and I even posted them on the Discord. Get in the Vulgarian Order Discord. But there's 2 videos that talk specifically about the new Screencraft stuff from Marcus Brownlee and Cleo Abrams, I think. And the episode being called Huge If True. And they go into some newer technology stuff, but they also showcase like what happens with the screen and on a smaller volume. So if you're just having trouble like visualizing that, there are some videos on the Discord, or you can go find them on YouTube just to give you an idea. So yeah, continue on, Shannon.
Yeah. So yeah, just a fun little fact. So watching Anson Mount talk about how fun it was to dive back into Pike's character, especially as we all know, he was sort of sidelined for the first 3 episodes due to the arrival of his child. So he was like, this is just a great chance to sink my teeth back into like the depth of what Pike brings to the table. He was saying that Pike is one of the closest characters that he's played like to himself. So he has a lot of fun exploring the different pockets that this season, but also this episode, really bring out in him. So it's always fun to hear when an actor is enjoying, and I'm pretty sure Anson Mount is like a long-term Star Trek fan as well. So he brings like a nerdy love as well as a crafty actor love into the role, and I think it's palpable. And I think that's why he makes such a great Pike, because Pike is already a likable character, and then you've got someone playing the character that loves the character. Also, really, I think La'an's my favorite character. I don't think that's a hot take. I just, as we spend more time with her, I'm like, oh, she's so cool. And every episode where we could just get like little peeks into who she is and what she brings to the ensemble table, I just eat that shit right up. And I love the actress. Like, I don't think I knew her before this personally. So now I'm just like, oh, I think she's really cool. So I like follow her on Twitter now. She has a new song that just dropped. I listened to that. It's pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just having so much fun, and to feel like we're already almost at that halfway point, right? Next week is 5. So this feels like the ball is starting to roll down the typical Star Trek jaunty episodes, like adventure after adventure each week. And I'm here for the ride, guys. I'm just having a great time. What did you think?
Great. I love this episode. I love having Pike back. Anson Mount, as it were, just from paternity leave, as you said, because he's been glaringly absent from the past 3 episodes. So I love bringing him back. And yes, as you said, what a great episode to showcase his what he stands for as a captain. Because I think one of my favorite things about this episode is this idea of forgetting and going through like these stages of not having like actual memories and only being able to base everything off of your emotions and love and your passion and what that says about you as a human, and like how you basically kind of revert to your inner like instincts, like who you are as a person, and all those things get exemplified because you don't have the weight and trauma of like different things like holding on to you or whatever, or guiding your I guess, life and your decision making.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just can be you, because that at any certain moment, like the only thing you recognize is yourself and who you are and who you are in this like world. You know, you don't even know what your passions are. Technically, you don't know what your goals are. You don't know what your mission is. You don't know who you know, what you kind of relationships are, unless you like happen to have them like written down and can make those connections. Like, and then even then, the relations that you would recognize, if love is the thing that carries on, then that would be the only thing you would know. So that's what you hold on to, you know? So I love this idea. Shannon, forgetting is one of my, I'm sure it's a lot of people's fears, but it's one of my greatest fears. I believe, my grandma had some like form of Alzheimer's, and, you know, I often, think about how sometimes I think back to 10 years ago and I'll just completely like not know people in my head. You know what I'm saying? Like I have trouble like remembering things, you know? So I'm always fearful that like, as I get into like older age, that this is going to be a thing that's going to happen. Yeah. Maybe even sooner. Who knows? Yeah. As we went through like COVID and like COVID systems being like a fog and kind of like a memory kind of block, you know? And I was like, man, this sucks, you know? Yeah. But I love how they deal with it. And I love how they kind of show some pros of that, not just like all cons, you know, a little bit of a benefit to that. There's a character here that talks about how he has to get through this and helps them overcome it. And there's something kind of beautiful there in what he kind of says and how he does that. And so I love seeing that that's possible. Yeah. You know, seeing that even if like we don't really recognize it or know it, and even if it would suck going through it, is something possible there for you to kind of hold on to. And I won't even remember that if I'm forgetting things, but there it is. But yeah, I think some of the, I think it is very strong, the stuff that's on Rigel VII, and then the stuff that's kind of on the back on the Enterprise is a little bit weaker for me. Some fun things, you know, Spock is still fun, things like that, but everything on Rigel VII is really cool. And I turned to you and I was like, this feels like a young adult novel. Like a trilogy of young adult novels just in like one single episode, because you're like on a planet where there's a specific caste system and like how they do things, and then there's going to be like a rebellion led by our characters, you know? And I can just imagine an entire like series done like this, you know? What if you dropped literally the pilot episode, like no one remembers who they are, and then like you learn about them like going through the entire series. Like if this was a whole season of this stuff, and then you learn that like this one character actually was from space and stuff, like that would blow your mind. Yeah. There's some good twists in there. Of course, we're coming in from a wholly different perspective, but I'm like, man, that's this would be a crazy cool story. Maybe it doesn't hold up in certain aspects, because again, once you stop to quote unquote think about it, you know, like some, I guess, little story holes could be present, but I think this strikes me as like a very strong concept that could have been done on its own. So the fact that this is what I love about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, is that they tackle these big ideas, big concepts into tiny episodes that you don't even have time to like really like get the full gist of it sometimes, but it is still really, really cool to kind of think about. And that's what I love about it. So yeah.
Hell yeah. Mattias, are you a writer?
Nope.
Are you a creative type? Tell me you're a writer without telling me you're a writer. He goes, this would be such a cool book. I could see it in 3 parts. Like this man. No, that's really cute. I like that speaks to you. And yeah, I really do think that's a lot of the fun for Star Trek for me too, is that, you know, you get to explore these characters and their world for 45 to 65 minutes, and then it sticks with you in some capacity. You're either like on the train having a fun time, or it's making you question, like, what would you do if you lost your memory, or how would the story expand in a different place and a different time with different characters. Like, that's just, I feel like that's the just quality of writing and entertainment we have right now with Star Trek. It's just fucking knocking it out of the park.
So how do you want to talk about this? You want to do character by character? Do you want to go maybe talk about Enterprise stuff first?
Let's do Enterprise and then Rigel.
Great. I mean, so we start off on the Enterprise. We'll just do both of our storylines with, again, Anson Mount is back. We have Captain Pike, and he's trying to get some personal time with the captain of the other ship. His girl, what is her name? Do you know?
Oh, Patel, Captain Patel.
But she's not only is she a prosecutor and like main lawyer for this, but she's also the captain of another ship.
That is like one of the weakest points so far that Star Trek has tried to make for me, is that this woman has basically 2 extremely demanding full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And she's the one that like wants to do this relationship, and he's
and she's the one that can also micromanage her time to like set time aside to date her boyfriend.
Well, Shannon, women can do anything.
Fucking obviously. I'm tired for her. She's like, are you kidding me? I just worked 4 shifts in a row and I'm here trying to eat this pasta and you can't even commit to. No, just kidding.
Do you think it's just to remind us that he's in a relationship kind of thing, or what do you think's going on?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Just the fact that we haven't seen them and like together really at all in the first season, and every time we see them, it's like these small occurrences, and now this is their first time like getting to actually do anything. I feel like they're trying to build up her character a little bit more because we've seen her more in this season. But also just again to remind us, hey, also he's in a, I guess, relationship. Yeah, you know,
I kind of like the concept. I feel like most captains are kind of not doomed, but doomed to be like alone, and that their first love and their loyalty is their ship and their crew. So for this captain to be able to like try to explore romantic depths with someone, I think is kind of interesting. I also like that it's Pike that gets to do it. You know, it's Anson Mount and it's this character. I think even speaking for myself, I'm liking Patel like more than I think I would or really think I should, considering the small amount of time that I get to spend with her. But seeing her interact with Pike, I'm like, oh, there's like room here for this to be an important relationship if they give it the time to develop. But again, when you have a woman that's a captain and a fucking lawyer, like, and they're on different ships, so I don't know how we get that big taste of her. You know what I mean? I don't see how she becomes a bigger player when she's not ever on our ship. But yeah, I do think you're probably right. It's like we're just getting more of her because it's going to be someone that's important to Pike and his probably character development.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it because I think, like I said, there's some depth there. I think the actors kind of enjoy like hanging out and having scenes together. Anson Mount was saying that I'm terrible with names, sorry, but the actress that plays Patel is like one of the deepest listeners that he's ever worked with. So he was like, it doesn't even feel like I'm on a set and I'm saying lines. It's like I feel like I'm talking to her. And I thought that was really vulnerable and unique, that you can just sit down with someone you only see a couple times on set and it's like, let's build this world really deeply. And it's because she just listens so well.
Okay.
Fun fact.
Sure. Yeah. I, as someone who is, who was in the military, Navy specifically, very much a good 1-to-1 in terms of, I guess, space travel on the Enterprise. Like, I agree. Like I think being a captain of a ship, much less in this capacity, like just a crew member, like holding any relationships that are not part of like normal ship life duty, like would be ridiculous and crazy. Like
absolutely,
like nigh impossible.
Yeah,
you know. And
I feel like Pike is always kind of looking for an out. Like he is kind of an avoidant with her and with these types of relationships. According to Anson Mount in that Ready Room thing I watched.
his number one says it to him, like says you're always this. You did the thing that you do,
Yeah.
which was kind of just force fed writing to me, but like like okay, but yeah, I mean she says it that's what they do,
and
so.
I think even if she wouldn't have said it, I think we can. The longer we spend with Pike, we'll see this in him, is that like he'll go balls out for the crew and for the ship. And then when people start to try to get close to him, there's like a certain amount of distance that he creates. And that's almost why it's interesting to see his relationship with number one, because they seem very close. She even gets that hug at the end of the second episode. Like, I feel like she's someone that's been with him for long enough that that wall has dissipated, but it's also because he can treat her in a functional capacity. It's like we have each other's back because like you're my number one. We're on missions together. We're solving problems together. So there's a teamwork aspect there. But with Captain Patel, it's like they don't really work together. Sometimes ships have to maybe go on a partnership mission, but ultimately there's no non-emotional teamwork to help build that relationship. So he literally just has to make time to sit with his feelings and with a partner and exist with them. And I think for him, that's kind of like off-putting.
Well, Una's the only one that knows about his vision and knows that he has that destiny of like dying and stuff like that. So that she is the only one that he's told that or is aware of it. So it makes sense that she's the closest to him, because she understands a little bit of what he's going through and why, not only like what is he doing this, pushing people away the way he does, but he's pushing people away because I don't think he feels like he can get closer to it, because he's always constantly reminded of, especially with this, I guess, Rigel VII business, because you said the vision came from Rigel VII. What?
The mission to Rigel VII
that they're referring to in the beginning of this episode?
No, where he comes back and like has his accident where he has to save people and the ship, and he gets all those burns and is in the life support wheelchair.
So the vision,
like that happens around this planet as well.
So the vision includes Rigel VII, is what you're saying. So the fact that like they're talking about Rigel VII and he knows it's around Rigel VII, like it is also like a reminder, and they just talked about it before talking about this. And so I think Una understands that like what's kind of like in his head, and why he keeps pushing back against like relationships. Because how can you invest in something long term, that you yourself believe is short term? But I think it's again something that he goes throughout this episode of like, it doesn't matter like how short term it is, because even if you're forgetting every day, like it's important.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the major things that he's going to struggle with.
Yeah. Touching on that too, I am surprised at how not all consuming knowing his fate is in his day-to-day life, that it hasn't turned him into someone that's fearful or someone that's completely apathetic or removed or too reckless.
Right. He's no Joel Miller.
Oh man. Just very interesting that, again, I'm sure, of course, if you knew how you were going to die, it would overshadow things for sure. But I think he does a great job at, again, trying to be honest and present in the moment. And I think we see him take a little bit of that journey with Patel from where he starts this episode with her to the end. Yeah, because I guess the idea too is like, we all in the end have something coming for us, right? Like we're not all going to be young and healthy and perfectly able forever and ever. So even knowing that, it's like, do you let that take away from the connections you can be building now? Do you let that fear impact your choices and impact your decisions? So
well, especially like if something you can give someone requires like being present, being in the moment, as this other character says over and over again, be here now, because that is what carries on when you forget. That's what carries on when people pass. He's talking about like, he doesn't remember their names, but he remembers how it feels. You know, he doesn't remember my kids' names or whatever it is, you know, or his wife's name, you know.
The guy on the planet.
And but like he knows what his emotion is, you know, and he feels it. He feels whatever that was, and he feels what he lost, you know. And in order to feel those things, you have to be present. You have to be in the moment to give someone that gift, you know. None of us wants to think about it in that term of like why, like leaving and or dying and or whatever, but you're still, when that happens, what you do now gives them that gift as something they can carry with them afterwards. And why would you deprive someone of that?
Right.
You know, especially, you know, so I love that that's something that they kind of tackle here, you know, but yeah, they learned that there was there's something happened on the last time they were near Rigel VII, or at least with Pike and Spock. So I guess that happened in Discovery. I don't know, or it happened prior, right? Either way, it doesn't matter. It happened in the past. They lost 3 people, but they left some things behind, including maybe some guns and maybe, well, they did lose some people, so their uniforms and stuff, and those people found it. The people on Rigel VII found it and co-opted it, the symbol, and the prime directive, I guess, is to clean up after yourselves. The responsibility of the Enterprise to be like, hey, you fucked this up and now you got to go back and clean up your mess. I don't know how you go back on this fuck up.
I don't either.
I don't know.
No idea.
What is the plan? If what happened didn't happen and it was just like, hey, we need to remove this sigil. Like, why? Like at this, it's the contamination's done.
It's already happened.
You know, like, in if it wasn't for the fact that this was a planet where people just forget things, you know, then like, I feel like that would have been like really hard to do regardless. Like but I guess you have to go and try, you know?
Exactly. How does something that's already been integrated into a society, it's like, hey, we're from space. Cool. That's like the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. Not only do you have to announce yourself, but like, what? Do you take the weapons back?
I mean,
do you
I know they
try
were doing
to erase minds?
Yeah, and I know
what
they were
do?
doing it secretly, but like, were they just going to do it like, were they going to just destroy the symbol themselves? Like, what were they like? Was it some Men in Black thing where they were going to make people forget? You know,
or like if it's part of your history, like, cool, you destroy the symbol. I'm alive. I know it was there. And now it's all of a sudden not. Like, that doesn't cleanse the timeline.
Yeah, I feel like this is like a years-long kind of mission to clean up this fuck up. It would require like integrating yourself, getting them back on track of whatever you think they were or whatever. So I think that's just such an interesting thing. But here, you know what? They're here. They're doing the thing. Well, they've learned about this problem on Rigel VII. They have to do an away mission, and the episode starts with a little bit of a what's her name, Ortegas, giving her little personnel log or whatever, and she's excited to be on an away mission because she can do that, but she's quickly reminded that she's not allowed to do that. Shannon, I was also super excited because we've had like a time travel episode. We've had a lawyer episode, you know, court drama. And then I heard Bronze Age. I was like, oh, we're going to do like an ancient Greek kind of episode, you know, or whatever it is, you know, like this is going to be very swords and sandals kind of in here. And you're like, no, it's not.
I was like, where do you think we're going?
The Bronze Age, Shannon, because they said they're stuck in the Bronze Age.
Right.
So I was super excited. Didn't turn out to be exactly that, but I love the costumes that they put on them, you know, and I love like that we get new, like we don't put them in their uniforms and stuff. So I love it when we get to do that, you know? And everyone looked pretty cool. And of course, Mbenga's like, oh wait, you need a doctor down there, which they eventually do, but also like, no, I just need your fighting skills, you know, because again, we've learned that Mbenga is a baddie and probably a better fighter than La'an and any other. I mean,
take it back.
Just saying. I mean, he's training her, Shannon, in the last episode. He's the one that's
He's not training her. He's
channeling
sparring
her
with
energy.
her. They are on the same level. No, you're totally right. He's so capable. He's a man of many, many, many hats.
Yeah.
And unlike Battelle with her 2 full-time jobs, I absolutely buy into M'Benga having all these skills.
For
like
sure.
they all make sense to me in the scope of maybe what he's been through and his current practice.
Yeah.
What's the D&D character that kind of, it can like do a lot of damage, but it's also the healer of the group? Is it cleric?
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
I feel like there's a D&D character that like kind of gets the best of both worlds, where it can definitely fight and deal damage, but it's also a healer, and whatever that type is in D&D, I feel like that's what the M'Benga character is. Like he's that, and his hit points are high, and he rolled high on his dexterity and everything. Yeah, great. I felt so bad that she had to stay behind, and I love that Spock is like, bro, I did not plan this. Like, I just looked at the facts, and then I delivered the facts because that's my job. And obviously, as an adult with control of your emotions, you're able to be like, I'm so frustrated at this, but I'm not going to start any shit. And then as the memories start to dissipate, and she's like, I'm mad at you. You don't even know why you're mad at him. But I thought that was a cute little throwback of like, that really hurt her feelings. She was so enthusiastic about finally getting off the ship, and then he kind of snatched that away from her.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about the whole, I guess, journey of the Enterprise while everyone is stuck on Rigel VII, like whatever's going on with Ortegas and Spock and Chapel during this whole thing? I
didn't pay a whole lot of attention to Chapel or Spock because obviously this is like an Ortegas centric little moment for her. And I'm glad because we really only get to see her through the lens of flying the ship. And even though I would argue that that's still the lens in which we learn her, it's fun to see if the idea is, are we like the sum of our experiences, or are there core values in us that are always present regardless of environment? And it's interesting to see that Ortegas, even when she was completely ignorant of like her past and her qualities, she still has this certain energy. Like she has a lightness and a curiosity, and not that she's childlike, but there's just some of that like light in her that obviously now we know is core. It's not something that's put on. It's not learned. It's just who she is and what she brings to the table. And I thought when Nurse Chapel was trying to explain both to the crew and to the audience, like how memory was going to be affected, she was like, I would be able to like treat wounds, but I wouldn't able to undergo complicated surgery. I was like, okay, so muscle memory. I think the body remembers. Your body remembers how to do things. And I think that's part of why Ortegas was able to fly the ship, but apparently not read. And I'm also wondering, like, why couldn't Spock read his name on his data pad? And is it because, like, it's in English and maybe, like, Vulcan is his first language, so he, like, language didn't transfer over?
That's what I thought. It might have something to do with both of his things. Like, and we get a previously on thing where he lets his emotions fly, and he, like, punches the wall of, like, the Enterprise from, like, the first season. So I thought we were going to be dealing a lot more with that. So I thought that was, like, going to be, like, the struggle of, like, these two sides, the emotional and then the logical, especially, like, which one does you revert to when you're forgetting things, and, like, what is the thing that's inherently in him? And so maybe it is that something in the language there, like, he didn't realize, like, who he was. Like, I don't know if he knew, but I do feel like if there were any scenes cut from this episode, it had to be from the Enterprise stuff, because we didn't really explore that at all. We didn't, not at all. We brought it up, but we didn't answer any questions or anything with him. So,
Spock,
and I don't know if that's going to come later. You know?
Spock, to me, this episode was so inconsequential. Like,
yeah, I can only imagine, again, this is something that they're just going to add on to him for, like, a later episode, and maybe it wasn't supposed to, you know, so I don't really know. But, like, yeah, I mean, he has just kind of been, like, a side character ever since the first episode.
Right, so. where he got the spotlight. So, and again, it's an ensemble piece, so you cannot focus fully on every character all the time. But I really thought that, you know, you've got 3 on Rigel, and you've got 3 on the Enterprise, and yeah, I think you're probably right. The Rigel storyline just like pulled a little bit more of the focus, especially because we finally got Pike back too. So I think they really wanted to spend time like with him and with that concept. But yeah, because of that, I'm a little disappointed again, specifically with Spock, that we didn't get to explore if we're going to hammer home so hard that memories are so closely tied to emotion. And even if you don't understand, like feeling is still there. And we have a half human, half Vulcan person on our main crew. And we're just like, Ortegas knew how to fly the ship. Like, I'm just surprised that that's kind of where the focus went. But
I think it's really interesting. I wish they had explored it more. As much as like Ortegas can be a fun character, we love our pilot characters. There's something like really annoying about the fact that the writers like to tell me how good of a pilot she is as opposed to like show us. And when they do show us that she's a good pilot, like the scenarios are never really that. Like, I don't understand what good piloting is in this world. You know what I'm saying? So they don't set it up, and they only have so much budget to do the flying stuff. So it becomes like, okay, I guess she's a good pilot because they told us. And, you know. And
we also hammer home, like, Ortegas is the best pilot. I'm so happy we have her. But number one's flown the ship. And Pike's flown the ship.
That was the thing, is like they kept taking that agency away because they were like, oh, you can leave. I can fly the ship. Pike can fly a ship. Like, we don't need her.
Right.
And when she got down to like her base kind of instinct, she wanted to get away from the bridge, and she was almost scared of whatever was happening outside that porthole, you know? And so like I was kind of curious about that, you know, like that cockiness like fades away and whatever.
Yeah.
But then, you know, she goes back to just being the same old. So I don't know what they were trying to tell us about Ortegas in that moment. I don't know if you got anything with that, with her fear or her kind of like how she did it, or if it was just supposed to be her getting her confidence back or whatever.
I think that was the idea, is that she found the truth. She was reminded like, oh, that feels familiar to me. That makes sense. And the curiosity brought her back. But in my heart of hearts, what I wanted is like, if this girl is like your pilot, she is the fucking baddest, then is there a part in her that like sees this danger and wonders in her own agency, how can I fix this? Like, where, you know what I mean? Instead of being told by the computer that you're a pilot and just being kind of like, again, leading the horse to like, oh, come this way, come back. I almost wish she would have had a little bit more of that power, because again, if we're going to take the time to explore these characters that we don't get as much time with, then I would say our like main 5 or 6, then like give me some of that meat, because I think Ortegas does have the potential to be a really interesting character, and just getting little hints of like, cool, if this is really who she is, then we need to give her full agency to be who she is, and stop just telling me she's a good pilot so she can get like a couple cute lines in and we can just enjoy her energy.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's that.
Yeah, for sure. And again, just to again reiterate what I said about like, I don't know what good flying is. Like, also when like the thing happens where she like drills a hole and kind of like dives through like an asteroid or whatever, I'm like, okay, like I guess that's the thing the Enterprise can do was just going through my head, you know, like I don't know what the ship is even incapable of or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So like that I wish was a little bit more thought out, because sometimes I'm like, I don't know why the ship can do that. 'Cause I'm thinking about like, are we doing physics of like Star Trek physics? Are we doing real physics? Are we doing, you know what I'm saying? Because space physics is a very different kind of thing, and like how ships move and whatever. Like, so I have no idea where we're at in that kind of sense. And the Enterprise is moving like a very, very small ship, in my opinion, not like a big,
massive,
you know. So it's really weird.
I almost feel like, you know, we should put Ortegas into like a fight scenario. I feel like some of the most, I mean, they've
been in some of the situations.
Some of the most fun flying sequences for me happen during battle. So not that I want to put the Enterprise in more danger, but yeah, so if we're going to shine the spotlight on how powerful and in control Ortegas is of a massive ship, then I think there needs to be like a full pursuit of some kind, because her just like flying into the asteroid belt, I'm not saying wouldn't be hard, but we didn't even really get like the dexterity of that, of like these things. I don't know.
Well, the thing is like representing someone who's like a good pilot is always kind of like hard to do, right? So like this is like an ongoing conversation. I don't think it's like a writing issue. Right. I don't think it's like what the scenario is. I think it's like more of like a direction kind of producing thing, you know, like that they're not interested in it. Whereas like Top Gun Maverick, the most recent like thing, like they hammer home how hard this thing is, how hard like these top pilots like over and over again, like what these jets are capable of, and like and all these things they cut away to so many things. So when Maverick comes in and does it under 2 minutes, you're like, holy fuck, it is possible. You know what I'm saying? Like you kind of get it, and like here you kind of just don't get any of that.
Yeah,
you know,
there's
like,
no weight if a bunch of people on the ship can also fly the ship.
Yeah, she doesn't have to like maneuver, because like I feel like the way that most people represent good flying is like, oh, they, like she said, thread the needle, they go through the canyon, they turn the ship sideways, and they like escape through the skin of their teeth. And I'm like, that's just CGI, whatever. It's like shorthand, and I don't it never lands with me.
Yeah.
And just in this case, it just didn't land with me as well. And there are ways to do it. But as with anything with structure of like representing anyone with skill, you gotta like somehow find a way to convey to us like what the stakes are, or how hard this actually is.
Yeah.
And you know, and where that skill is actually on any sort of level. Especially when you keep undermining her and being like, hey, I can fly this.
But also other people can fly it. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's some thoughts there.
Yeah.
Still a fun character as it is, and some, you know, fun little dynamics with her and Spock every time.
Yeah.
So that said, we're gonna go away from the Enterprise and finally make it back down to Rigel VII, where our away party is and where the bulk of this episode takes place. They land. La'an deals with some like little memory loss. She's been out for like 2 hours as they were walking or something, and just didn't realize it. But you know, that's weird. And then eventually they get to this castle where they find out that their problem is a lot bigger than they thought they were, because they have blasters. They're not in the Bronze Age anymore. Like it's a very different kind of thing. And lo and behold, one of the crew members that they left there that they thought was dead, the yeoman Zacharias, is now King Zacharias, and he has taken over. Before I realized that the forgetting thing was going to be a ongoing issue for the rest of the crew and everyone else, I thought it was just like a La'an thing at first, because she was the only one that was affected at first. I found this like really interesting because Pike is like, well, we're here now and we can bring you back. And I'm in my head, I'm like, what world? Who would go from I've been a king for 5 years to suddenly being the yeoman of your ship? Like, not happening.
Right.
Like, there's no reason I would do that. And I thought it would be very, very interesting for him to do that, and also made him like not a villain character, just someone that's at odds with what the Enterprise ideals are, or even the Federation ideals are. But then I can also see like why the Federation Starfleet would not want that to happen. This is why you don't interfere with other worlds, because any one of us could become a king on another world if given the opportunity, because of the knowledge that we have and stuff like that, especially in one that is stuck in the Bronze Age, as they said. So I found that kind of like very interesting. We didn't deal with that because that wasn't what the episode was about, but I found that like super interesting. What did you think?
Yeah. I was a little bit confused. So he becomes, you know, he's stuck here. He becomes king. That's great for him. Was the whole system of like some people forgetting and some people not forgetting pre-established before he became king? Or is that something that he implemented?
I think, no, that's been there for thousands of years.
Okay. So he just fell into this system and decided to like play the strongest hand.
I would not even start to think about like the history of the world or where this came, I just take it for what it is, because as soon as you start to think about it, you'd be like, okay, great. how did they manage to build this castle? How did they manage, you know what I'm saying? Like, how did they discover their helmets to, a whole bunch of different things that, like, the history of it, I just wouldn't even think about it because that would be just going down a rabbit hole. Like, it is what it is, and I would just go from there.
Oh.
Okay. Just because I think it would be too, I'm not telling you, I'm not shutting you down. I think you're, I'm just saying, like, it would, I think, as I thought about it, I'm like, okay, this is not going to give me any answers, and I feel like it's not worth it trying.
Yeah. Okay, well, we deal with...
Well, did you want to answer did you think about that? I asked you what you thought about what I was talking about, like being a king in another world. Would you, if you were part of the Starfleet and you could... would I become king or would I go back? Would you feel like, are you on his side? Are you not on his side? Would you want to go back?
Unfortunately, like, I'm definitely on Zach's side because it probably felt like such a betrayal of, like, you left me here. I was alive and you left me here to fend for myself. And now you're going to come back after I've found a way to, like, stay safe and thrive. And you want me to go back to my old life. I don't trust you anymore. That's not, like, me anymore. But also I'm under the impression that he would face, like, repercussions from Federation because...
But and that's the thing, is like, what repercussions matter to me as someone who's, like, doles out the repercussions? You know what I'm saying? Now I can be, that's, like, such an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Again, that wasn't really what it was about. But, like, even the fact that, like, he is going to have to go and deal with those repercussions afterwards, you know, like that they're going to bring him back and he's going to have to figure out what that is. Like, he did. This is like, on a smaller scale, this would be him, like, grooming, like, a child, you know, in that sense. Like, I guess in that, like it is very bad, you know?
Right.
So like, in that sense, like, oh man, I understand that. But also, like, they left him there, you know? And I don't know what the good version of, like, metaphor that is for, you know what I'm saying? But again, you have become... Like, you didn't know, and no one's coming back for you. You're dealing with, like, a world where people are forgetting things all the time. Like, it's very understandable. It's like, they made you king. Like, I guess you might as well keep it, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, what was his responsibility, I guess, and do you think it was a message originally, the sigil, for him to get back, you know?
Oh, that's very interesting. I think, because doesn't he say that, like, he knew if Starfleet checked, like, he knew they would see it and come down. So even though he didn't plant it in the first place, that they kind of did it for him. He was like, I know it's, you know, if they're out there, they're going to come back because they have to.
I just wonder, it's like, I mean, to a certain extent, like, it was his responsibility to, like, not interfere and to not become king and, like, all those different things. But also, if you think no one's coming for you and it's been 5 years, like, at what point do you just be like, okay,
right?
You know?
And I'm so curious as to how, like, apparently the landing party wasn't there long enough to all have, like, their memory. It was just long enough to go through that ambush and for Spock to, like, almost bleed out, basically, and for people to die. But that first night that he had to go through, that means that on his first night on that planet, he lucked into finding a place where his memory wasn't erased because he sat on this spite for 5 years.
I think, like, he went through a whole forgettings, and I think eventually he found his way because I assume that he being so different, having, like, guns or having this box and having, like, this weird clothing, that eventually he gets to a point where he has to explain something, and then his memories come back when he's, like, in the castle or whatever, you know, and then eventually he uses that to his, like, leverage, you know. But he went through forgetting, you know. He mentions that he went through this, and he's can't wait to see how they, like, go through it. He wants to torture, or, you know, which inherently makes him a bad guy. At first I was like, hey, like, this makes sense. Like, I thought we were gonna tackle, like, why would you bring this guy back, you know? And then it became a whole other episode, you know? Like, he, like, what do we do with someone who's, like, is now the king? Like, he's not inherently evil, but then he did some evil things by knowing what was going to happen to them. So some very interesting stuff. So yeah, he puts them in a cage. They go through a forgetting, and none of our characters remember who they are or why they are there. and then they are sent, I guess, to the fields, the rock fields, and the whatever. This is where like things like the volume for me like kind of feel, I guess, like isolated and limited, you know, like they only had this like limited amount of space to kind of like create this world, you know, and it felt like it felt again just so, I guess, isolated is the only word I can think of, you know, in that sense. It was kind of weird to me.
I can feel that,
but and didn't feel like fleshed out. Didn't feel, you know, like a bigger part of the rest of the world. Like this is the only place where humanity is, and like the actual world building of it was kind of like weak in that sense, you know. I'm sure you said Rigel VII's a big thing, so we'll keep returning to it. It'll be interesting to see what happens if they've been able to expand, you know. There's so many things I could think of that could have happened in a world where people forget like all the time, but you know, that is nothing to say. Basically they go to work in this field, but that, you know, it's just like one rock and like one tree stump.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, oh, I almost kind of wish I didn't know that they were shooting on volume, because I wondered if that would change my perspective of what was happening. But immediately I was just like, I see it. It's like, here's your little stage. There's your like screen wall. But that's okay. You know, it's the production limits, and that's totally fine. But again, if we're thinking about the concept of who we are, if not the sum of our experiences, so we see who already kind of has like that fight or flight instinct in them. And I think we're getting little hints that Pike has a little more like anger and like darkness, if you will, than he lets on, because he's very quick to be like, I'm a fight pretty hard.
Yeah, there's
in multiple circumstances.
I thought there was a different Pike that was kind of like coming out, but you know, as he mentions later on, like that passion or anger is because he wants to protect his crew as well, inherently, even though he doesn't know it. You know, I guess there's like a little bit of self-preservation there, you know, initially, and once he gets his memories, it's just more of like, oh no, this is just about me holding on to, you know, because he knows something's wrong. And he has to do the right thing, you know? What do you think of this character we get, that the old man that's kind of giving them the rundown and helping them do their thing?
He was kind of weird to me too.
Well, he just forget things every
He does. I mean, so do I. No, I don't know. He was fine. I think it could have been fun without him too, but he is the reason that we have the concept of like, what if we don't need the pain? Like, this can, like, we have an okay life. Yeah, we're in a cage every night, but you don't have any pain. You don't suffer because you don't remember, right? So is it that bad?
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting take, but I would argue is just his version of adapting to his circumstances. You know, if you have no other opportunity or no other alternatives, of course you're going to look for ways to make this make sense and to fit into the square and the confines of what your day-to-day life is. But more importantly than this like random man, I liked the concept of he must have remembered at some point or been close enough to have a memory come back, because he ink blots out the names of the people that he lost that hurt.
I mean, I don't think it's that hard to believe that, like, after knowing and not knowing how long it's been or whatever, and just like waking up and seeing these names and knowing they're not around and having that pain or whatever, it's just more like the idea of like, I don't want to like remember anymore. Like, I want it to be like gone, even though that doesn't do that. Right. The pain is still there and whatever. Like, he doesn't have to remember.
Well, that's what he's saying, is that the pain isn't there.
Right. Well, it's still there. When does he say the pain isn't there? The pain is still there. The memory isn't there. Yeah. He doesn't know the details. He always says that love stays, the pain and the pain stays. He still remembers the loss. He still remembers how it feels. He keeps talking over and over again how emotion is the thing that drives what you do in the scenario, is because like it matters. Like you will forget it at one point. You know, it'll be forgotten, like the actual details why. That's why like no one would mount any sort of revolution or anything, because you're going to forget why, like what the detail is, you know, like if you can't hang on to like that emotion. But he says, when he talks about the names, he's like, love is the one thing that doesn't go away. And with that love, I think like the pain of it, you know, the pain of the loss, like stays, you know, he doesn't, like, he knows what those things mean to him, you know. I do feel like once he remembers their faces, once he remembers who they are and like all those different things, like that's when the pain becomes exponential, you know. But if you don't have to look at their names, if you don't have to like try and recall them or whatever, I can imagine that it does subside a little bit, but I don't think it's gone per se.
Also,
I don't remember him saying that.
How can he still like read and recognize symbols, but no one else can?
I can't, because as soon as I think about like why, like how do you teach a child to read? Like if this has been thousands of years, how do you teach someone to read?
Right.
It makes sense if someone already knew, but then you have to teach them. But how do they retain that? Because it has to become something that's inherent to them. So they have to practice it like every day before it becomes like like integral. And again, as soon as you start thinking about it, I don't think it like holds up.
Yeah, or like
so
speech even.
So
like
I don't even want to, like, I think it's just, that's just a useless kind of thing to do, because you'll hurt your brain thinking about it. So I don't worry about it. But I do love, so my bet the entire time was that this old man was like the previous king, you know, and that like maybe Zacharias was even worse and he like overthrew him, you know, and like killed the family. That would have been like interesting. Ended up not being the case, though I think that would have been more interesting. I'm curious if anyone in the chat also had that like inkling or thought, you know. That being said, I did love what he had to say. As I mentioned, like I do remember like how he said these things, and the fact that emotion comes first, and how you just have to be in the moment. One of my, maybe I'll link to it. It's been a long time since I've thought about this, but one of my favorite videos on the internet is a guy who did this thing at this conference, and it was called Be Here Now. And it also utilized like these screens with him on stage. It was just a really powerful kind of like message, you know, and I love that is the big thing that he keeps harping to them, is like, doesn't matter where you're coming from or who you are or where you go. It's like, just be here now. Who's in front of you, you know? And that thought and that idea, I think, is so strong and reminds us, it's such a good reminder of like not getting caught up in like, because you can get caught up, like it's not just memory, it's like anxieties, it's fears, the things that we hold on to that become so traumatizing to us, which is what holds us back from doing things, you know, and believing like what other people like might think or will think or all those kinds of things. And it's like, well, no, I'm here now, and allowing these things to allowing what's inside of me to just be in the moment, and letting that drive me, and not worrying about those things, you know. And I think that can be a very powerful message, and can be a thing that we should allow ourselves to embrace. I guess a philosophy, even if it's kind of an extreme way of getting of solving the forgetting issue, you know, or a world that is suffering from, you know, Alzheimer's, as it were, you know.
Yeah.
And like, what else? I mean, in that sense, like, what else do you have? Like, what other choice would you have? Sure, they know, and we figure out that it was not, like, that's not the world, you know. But when it is the world, you know, when there is nothing to overthrow, when there is no real, if this is the story as it is, like, what else could you do? Like, this is, when it's not malicious intent, you know, like, what else can you have but to come up with this way of doing things, you know? And I feel like that's just super interesting and thought provoking, and why not, be still, chill out a little bit, kind of be in a moment, what could the crew learn from that? Do you think? Have any thoughts there?
I do. I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of this comes from like previous knowledge. Like I know to be Zen because I know every night I forget. But if I forget every night, how would I know in the morning that I just have to like get through?
I went it again.
I know, but that dives.
Well, that's what Alzheimer's is, right?
Understanding where that lives in your body is important to me to understand how the emotion plays into it. Because if emotion is the only thing, is the heaviest thing, is the thing that our body and our hearts remember, even when our brain is not accessible, maybe. It's like, what work do you do every day that builds up over time, even though you don't remember it? And again, is it the idea of who you are regardless of the experiences that shape you? So was this man someone that already practiced that in his life or already sort of was drawn to that concept? So he wakes up and he just lives
like
his
this for
truth.
Years. Like,
right.
He could have grown up like this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these aren't all people that came here from space, like this is.
No, they're natives, right?
Yeah, this comet has like landed thousands of years and has been causing this problem. So I feel like he was born like this, like,
right.
Like there are probably different people who think differently, but like this is, I guess the wisdom of old age, like he maybe knows like if he just tried to do something before and he just, and it failed, and he maybe remembers that loss or that passion, and maybe that's why he doesn't have his family anymore, or how he lost them, and maybe that's something he could have learned later or whatever. I don't know if it has to be inherent, but it can be, I guess, ingrained in you after some time, of dealing with it.
Absolutely. And what a bummer then, because this man must have had a relatively normal life, and then that asteroid hit. And that's like wow to me too. How did he fall in love and have a family?
The asteroid hit thousands of years ago. He's not thousands of years old.
So how did he have a family?
As anyone does, like.
But I don't remember you the next day. How would you? So that's another very interesting thing. Like, how do you fall in love? How do you build connections when every day I forget who you are? Every day.
Isn't that
you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I'm pregnant.
I hate to bring up an Adam Sandler movie right now, but that's like the part of like 50 First Dates, right? Is like Adam Sandler is in love with, and even like The Notebook, right? Of like the person forgets every single day who you are or whatever, and then you remind them, So I think
because you have history,
both people have to re-meet each other. Like you wake up. At some point, you are waking up in the same tent, and you're seeing this person, and you know how the forgetting happens. It becomes easier over time, and you have to recognize that this is a person that means something to me. Especially if you recognize sigils on each other, it's like, okay, you are a person that means something like to me, and if that's human nature is to continue doing that and to fall in love for whatever reason. It might be just. What beauty it must be to like fall in love again over and over again, what beauty must it be to like wake up with you and not have to think about like, oh, this person pissed me off yesterday or whatever, or like think about like the things and like the things that annoy you don't remember it because like they annoy you new
but you
again,
because like, you would remember that they were annoying or that you were mad at them, but you wouldn't remember why.
Well, I mean that's the thing, it's like, but is that that's maybe a curse to you, but that could also be like a boon if you don't remember why, then you can more easily let it go because because you realize how fleeting this feeling is and fleeting that moment is, that you can just be like, let's start over again and just continue. What is the reason? Why am I here with you? What is the reason I want to be with you? And like, why do you make me feel this way? And let's just start with that. Yeah,
it's almost like, who are you to me today? Not who have you been to me? And again, a very interesting concept. The reason that it really works for the Enterprise crew is because they have that shared history. And if feelings are the strong thing that connects you, like if you and I both woke up tomorrow and didn't have a memory, my body and my heart would still know how you make me feel because we have a shared history. But if you grow up on a planet where you never build that history, how do you have identity or community in a place that never has longer than a 25.3 hour time cycle? And then it just resets. How do you build meaningful connections in such a short amount of time?
Again, I think that is, you're going down a hole of like trying to make sense of something that doesn't need making sense, and like rather than just accepting that is just what happened. Unfortunately, that is
and
what
I'm even cool
I wouldn't
to say
worry
that
about the detail.
It's something that happens, but as a human, where does that connectivity come in?
Again, if you believe that like emotion or things build up over time, and like being within something that's inherently you and something that you inherently are drawn to is the same thing that still draws you in every day, then just like that's
super interesting.
It's frustrating because again, I don't want to have to explain something that is not explainable, because that is not something that I feel like we need. That's a detail hole that's not gonna lead to like give you an answer.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I didn't need an answer. I think it's fun to explore.
Sure. I mean, if you want to pretend to forget then whatever and what that would mean, then I guess like go for it. But I think already like the idea that something like that you could still find love and still do those things within the confines of that, I think is the beauty of the human spirit and the human condition. Whether or not you think it's quote unquote possible, I don't know. I care about space physics and you care about like heart physics, I guess, or whatever, you know. So
yeah, no, just again, yeah. I know there aren't answers, but I like the energy that you're speaking to. I feel like it's a heady question. It's a philosophical question. I don't want to just say like, oh, because the writer said so, because you're so often the person to be like, that's not enough. It's not enough to just say, oh, the writer said so. Like,
I don't know if it's the writer said so. I think, again, the world building of how people lived like this is just something I need to stop thinking about, or else like it will never make sense.
Yeah.
Because again, this is something that just this is the themes, but the themes that they want to explore is something that I think is still worth exploring. The details of how someone can live like this is just a whole other conversation that you'll never, because you can decide that it's impossible, and then therefore like it doesn't lead you to talking about the episode in the way and whatever. So like it's just too much. Like it's like there's too many, I guess, quote unquote plot holes or things or little like nitpicks that you can have about this kind of world building, because, and I think with any episode of Star Trek, whenever you start looking at like the actual world that they say this exists, and you're like, okay, think about it for a second. How
like
do they actually?
Where?
What are the economics? How's it like? It's too much, because you can go down too deep and decide like, well, that's not how the world works,
right?
Which is also just to show us like it's not really about that. It's about what if, you know?
Right.
So like, just go on the what if adventure.
Go on the what if adventure. I'm gonna make that on a t-shirt. Okay, great. So where does that lead us?
I mean, I don't know unless there's any more you want to actually explore there with the idea of forgetting or whatever, and what's true to us and whatever. I mean, they successfully do a 2-man revolution, because at the end of the day, like these soldiers suck, because I guess they haven't had to fight too much, you know? So because like who would fight, you know?
Yeah.
And again, who built that castle? What the fuck ever? I don't know. Like, and then, you know, Zacharias does his evil king thing and decides to grovel and whatever and cower in fear. And you know, and Pike almost kills him. Do you thoughts about Pike like almost giving in to like those baser instincts of like wanting to kill someone when he's not really? That's not usually the thing that our captains would do. I mean, he does take it back.
Right.
But when he wasn't being himself,
right.
you know?
Or I would argue when he was being himself. And that's, super interesting is, again, how much of our personalities are like chosen, that we find traits that we can be proud to wear. And so we wear them proudly. But that doesn't mean that, we've said it a couple times that like Pike's the Boy Scout. And it's like, oh, he's a Boy Scout because he puts in like the work. And that's the type of person that he wants to be. And he's in an environment that enables him to do it.
Yeah.
But ultimately at his core, if he were to just be able to be stripped down to his core emotions of like fear, rage, love, protection, like what would come out of him? And it is violence. And I think that's a ton of fun especially from a character that we keep calling a Boy Scout. Like he is a Boy Scout. And again, it's a chosen, he leads the type of life he leads because he's proud to lead it. He's proud to have those qualities. He's proud to be the person that can stand up and protect and fight for. And yeah, his higher brain is the one that is in control and helps him make the decisions.
Yeah, I think there's this also like interesting, I don't want to call Pike privileged, but there is a sense of like when you strip away the things that, got you to this certain point, right? If he's no longer like he has no memory of who he is, that he is a captain, that he like has any of these accolades, whatever. He's just stripped down to his baser instincts and he's put in a cage and he's kind of like back against the wall. Like what are the things like this fight or flight mode or whatever it is when you're stripped away of like your kind of purpose and your mission and anything that you have, like if it's not easy for you and you have to claw your way out of that, like who do you kind of become when you're backed into a corner, you know, when you like it, how do I put this? If you take a lab rat, which normally like these mice are not going to hurt you, whatever, but then you do things to them and torture them, whatever, like is it their baser instinct to be like violent and try and like bite you and like do that? Is that like no, not necessarily. It's just like who you can become when you're like stripped of any sort of like agency. And I think that was like kind of given to him. Whereas the reason why I say he could be privileged normally is because he hasn't had to deal with that most of the time. Like we haven't seen him deal with that kind of confrontation, that kind of conflict in his own inner life. Whereas like majority of the people, the reason why this yeoman doesn't want to go back to, like, I can imagine they didn't deal with it, but like immediately I was like, a yeoman of the ship is like not a king, right? And right now he has everything, but then if you strip that agent like see away from him, you get like, you put him in like a yeoman position, like there's like climbing through the ranks, having to like it's not easy for you, you're not like the best at anything, or whatever, like that can create like a lot of a different kind of person, of having like a jadedness, a sense of survival, instinct that you have to, the things that you do when you push people away, and like, yes, Pike has a certain amount of that, but when I see him being like pushing people away, I was like, you're not, it's not the same as like when someone else is like, you're have everything handed to you. When you see him as like a Boy Scout, it's because like he hasn't really had to deal, the conflict that he's had to deal with is very different, from like other people who have had that agency ripped away from them. So it's kind of interesting how he just gets a dose of that, and then that's just kind of what I see in that, whether or not that's true.
Well, it's like, look at La'an and look at like her backstory. Yeah. She came up under dramatically different circumstances than Pike came through the ranks of Starfleet. Yeah. Pike was born in fucking California, like on Earth, and experienced an entirely different set of like problems and trials, but those things shape the traits you're able to be proud of and put into place. So of course he's set up for that trajectory because almost of like the area and the time and the opportunities that were given to him, just like anyone else. And with La'an, maybe different qualities would come out with her if she wouldn't have been in a fucking like Gorn breeding camp for years and had to fight her way out of that. Like that's being backed into a corner. So to see La'an maybe is more distant, more likely to fight, more likely to experience like anger and rage quicker than maybe someone like Pike would be. It's because she's brought up under these like ridiculous circumstances. So yeah, to see Pike finally in a circumstance where It's like your back's against the wall completely. And without all of the resources that are usually available to you, who do you become? Just what all the rest of us become when we're backed up into a wall.
Whereas when Lon, I think, was represented with the exact same thing Pike was in this episode, like, yeah, she still fought to get out of it, but it was like not as much like she saved Pike as opposed to, you know, like just outright like starting a revolution, you know, like she like calmly looked at the things that she would have to deal with, you know, like how do we get out of this kind of situation or whatever, and he's just like, no, we got to get out of it, you know. So there could be such an interesting parallel with that, whereas like she's dealt with it so much,
so she's better equipped
to kind of do that. So I find it interesting that they kind of took her out there. Maybe that's something that we felt like that was exploring and could have been explored more, but apparently like that was a missed opportunity maybe there, you know, but still quite present. Yeah. I mean, just again, showing how like, oh, if his base instinct, is it his base instinct? No, but like, is it when someone who's dealing with an adversity they've never had to deal with, you know, what happens to them and how much more heightened that reaction becomes. Super interesting, and probably will come up again. I'm assuming, you know,
probably,
and or at the very least, will he'll have to deal with and hopefully make a different choice next time, whatever that is, or whatever. So who knows? And again, I'm surprised we didn't deal more with that with Spock, because I felt like that was also another thing that we were going for. With the previously on like segment, but you know, there we are. So,
another thing I really love that Strange New Worlds is doing is creating this sense of like shared history and shared background, not just on the confines of the Enterprise. So we have like Nurse Chapel and the Doctor and their shared history of possibly serving during the Klingon War on the same station. But do we know the history of Mbenga and La'an yet? Because they have that little shorthand.
Are we in Lore Loft? Are you going to give us a history?
No, because La'an is not a character that we know.
I think that shorthand is just something that we inherently assume. I mean, that happened in the first episode of the season.
It also happened in season 1.
Listen, that there is just, it is clearly like a nod to The Sting, a movie with names Paul Newman and Robert Redford, a con man, and they have the I'm gonna do it for the camera. They do their index finger on their nose, you know, to kind of like show like to kind of like communicate to each other, you know, and so that's just a different thing than finger under the cheek. So it's not hard to like assume that like that happened at some point, but like, are you talking about like what their relationship, what the history? I mean, it's just
like
what we
where
you know?
I'm interested to see where that cultivated from, because if it just happened on the Enterprise, fine. But the fact that they do it through multiple seasons already, this is like the third or fourth time that we've seen them do it. I'm like, that means something. And what does it mean? Is it the recognition? Is it like, I see you, like, what does it mean to them? And also then how did they cultivate that? Because if there's any deep sort of meaning to it, how did that come about from like serving on the Enterprise together? I'm
trying to remember like what exactly it means when people have that signal in the Sting and stuff. But it's more of just like I see you, or I'm here, or like, you know, like we're on the same page kind of thing. You know, it's kind of what that is. It's kind of like, again, a recognition of like, I am one of you kind of things, you know? Just like an Avatar was like, I see you, like whatever. So I am glad that they are giving these new characters like different relationships, you know? Yeah. I mean, Mbenga spent so much time, rightfully, you know, thinking so much about his daughter, you know, that was like stuck in a like hypersleep kind of situation. That wasn't exactly it, but you know what I mean? Yeah. The first season, that like actually now having the time to build out relationships, and the fact that clearly like a kinship has been found between him and La'an, and that we're not we're not just seeing like the old relationships, but we're seeing like new ones
Right.
and how they're like shaping up. So it's a lot of fun to do that. So I don't mind it.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah. Anyway, they mount the revolution. They get back on the ship and they destroy. They don't destroy an asteroid. They bring it back with them and put it amongst the asteroid field, so that Rigel VI, I guess, can become what it was meant to be according to the cat. Again, they make up their own rules, so whatever.
They're like, I fix.
I think, again, we've talked about what we thought about the episode. We've gone through like different things. Unless there's anything else to say, I think we can go to like lore loft if there's anything, because I would love to hear more about what that means for Rigel VII or this area, like what you know about it. If you don't have anything else to say about the episode in terms of the ending.
I only want to touch on Pike being able to like admit his own shortcomings to himself and where his like communication breaks down or where his connectivity
he and
breaks
his
down.
girlfriend, I guess, have another conversation.
Yeah.
That was
and
the point.
I think that's hard to do, is to do something and then come back and like really admit that you were wrong or that you have like some sort of accountability to take sometimes. The easier option would be to let it rest. You said your piece. It is easier. Like y'all don't really have that much time together anyway, but to come through and be like, hey, you know what? You're important to me. I realize I fucked up and I realize how important you are to me. And I would like to like make better efforts at like communication and time spent together and being present. I think again, is just a shining light back onto the Pike that we know and appreciate, because he makes these choices because that's the kind of person that he wants to be, someone that you can rely on, something that will protect you, and someone that you can really connect with. So I thought that was a nice little button for him. And I don't know when we're going to see the girlfriend next, because she probably has some jury duty to attend to for the next couple of episodes. But yeah, just, Pike is such a cool dude. Generally.
Yep. We're glad to have him back. He's back on the ship.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's the end of the Locust Eaters.
Locust Eaters.
Lotus Eaters. Chat, please tell us if you know what the episode title means, because neither of us looked it up or figured it out.
No. And like I said, the Lotus Eaters are just from the Odyssey, and they're just people that eat lotus fruits, and they have no drive or purpose. Like that's their whole thing. You just said
it, and then that's the people.
But how does that connect?
So because the people that they were among that forgot things, like have no drive or purpose, except for what they do every day. Our crew was among the Lotus Eaters. You had that in your pocket the entire time, and you didn't say that. I asked you what you thought it meant, and you're like, "No, it's just a thing." Because the people that have no memories have no drive or purpose. Without your memories, what is your drive? What is your purpose, Shannon? Besides being in part of the moment. That's another theme of the episode, I'm assuming.
Oh.
Good job, Shannon.
Oh, man.
Well, we figured it out.
All
the way here. Well, Shannon, do you want to go to the lore loft?
I do love the lore loft, but I don't think I have any loft lores to share with you today.
Well, damn it.
Next time.
I was excited, Shannon.
Oh.
I wanted to go to Lore Loft. It's my new favorite segment, and everyone's favorite segment on the podcast.
I don't think it's anyone's favorite segment except mine.
That's fine. Our other episodes were very heavy on lore. And that's fine. So it makes sense. You just forgot it all. Is basically what I'm getting. Every piece of lore that you had has been forgotten, and maybe you'll remember next episode.
Maybe if I get off this fucking planet.
Lore Loft is fun, guys. Y'all need to have fun. Okay. Well, in that sense, sounds like we both were pretty high on this episode.
Yeah.
Pretty good return to form. Especially, I think last week you didn't like last week's episode, from what I recall.
It was all right. Yeah.
It was your least favorite.
Yeah.
Is what you said.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Who knows? But yeah. So that's it. That is our little talk about among the Lotus Eaters.
Mm-hmm.
This has been Codependent Content. If we did miss anything, or if there's any lore that you think we should look into, including what more we see of Rigel VII and what this means for the future of that race in that planet, please let us know. You can email us at codependentcontent@gmail.com. You can also find us on Discord where we record this live, and all the things that we did cut out. You would have been here to listen to.
You would have heard it all.
If you had been on the Discord. But as always, you can leave comments on our YouTube channel, or my YouTube channel, where I post these videos, and a great way to engage with us if you don't want to email. But I still encourage everyone to go to Discord, because that's the place where you can engage with us, start your own discussions, and I don't know, maybe find a community, much like the Enterprise and the people that we spend time with, and learn to love even when you forget them every day, Shannon.
Every single day.
Because apparently you can't love anyone unless you remember their face every morning. So here we go.
How can you love someone if you never remember them? How do you cultivate love if you don't remember them?
Well, I guess we'll figure it out.
Get in the chat.
I guess we'll learn next week when we return for episode 5, Strange New Worlds, and whatever that episode is called.
Yes.
Star Trek. Will you be there, Shannon?
I will be there.
Are you sure?
I'll try.
Okay. Well, see you then.